What's changed is that people are now at a point where they don't want empathy anymore. They don't want to be sort of, oh, isn't it terrible? They want some practical kind of change and
want to take that control as well. Like, actually, we can't just keep biding our time waiting for this to end.
We can't wait forever. It may never be over, right? This might be what we live in right now. So we can't wait forever for things to change. We might have to change them.
We like to think of progress as a straight line, but as any futurist will tell you, the reality is much messier. Today we find ourselves caught in a strange cultural tug of war. We are wary of a dystopian future, yet we are desperate for a reason to be optimistic. VML Intelligence calls this dysoptimism, and it's just one of the 100 trends shaping how we live, shop, and communicate. Joining the conversation today are Marie Stafford and Emma Chiu, the global directors at VML Intelligence, to dive into their Future 100 report. We're exploring why consumers are demanding radical honesty, how AI is shifting the creative landscape, and why the most successful brands are the ones that acknowledge the world is a little bit broken and then offer a way to help fix it. I'm Emma Thuman, and this is Campaign Chemistry. Welcome to the pod, and we're really happy to have you. I guess to start off, for our listeners, maybe give like a TLDR on what you both do as global directors.
Wow. Big question to kick us off there, Emma. Where do we start? Well, I mean, the way we describe what we do is that we are futurists, essentially. So we help brands navigate the future by exploring consumer change, innovation, cultural shifts that may impact their consumer and their business. And we do that through the lens of trends. So we report on trends, and then we apply them to our clients' business and help them, to kind of see what it means for their future.
Gotcha. Fair. I'm really curious because, like, in relation to VML, the first thing I think of when I read VML Intelligence, maybe this is just how much AI is in the world, but I immediately think of AI. So what exactly is VML Intelligence, like, in relation to the agency?
So for us, VML Intelligence is primarily here to understand how people operate, what their behaviors are, expectations, and from there, grounding in sort of consumer insight, we project what the future will be. When it comes to artificial intelligence, it's definitely a space we've been talking about for a decade plus. In different iterations, of course. Over the past few years, we've seen it be more accessible to people. And this has really, scaled in terms of AI usage, but also education around artificial intelligence. Our positioning is to help inform how people are using artificial intelligence, why, and what do they expect from AI. There's a lot of, pros and cons to AI usage, and we want to make sure we're at the forefront as an agency with all the positives of artificial intelligence and making sure we are clear in our standing where people may be quite fearful of AI, to make sure we kind of mitigate those fears.
And I think that's a good transition because AI was brought up many times throughout your VML 100 report, which is mainly what we're here to talk about today. And I'm really curious. So VML 100, I guess, just to sum it up, it identifies like 100 trends or incoming or ongoing that are just throughout culture in general or throughout consumers.
The Future 100 primarily was designed to chart 100 trends to look out for in the year ahead. We're in its 12th year. So we have, 1,200 trends, but we had a sort of 1 year, 2020, where we had a little update of and review of the report. But it allows us to look at micro trends that are happening in the year ahead. So it's really designed to support people in terms of offering inspiration, lateral thinking. So really wanting people to think outside of their usual sectors that they work on and categories. So the way it's split within the report is there's 100 trends, but there are 10 trends attached to different verticals, which include things like retail, technology, food and drink, luxury, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I'm really curious, though. I feel like this is the third time I've said this in 5 minutes, but what is the process of putting the report together? Because if it's looking into 100 trends, there's so many interviews within the report with so many different people. So, like, what is, I guess, the time frame? How is it put together?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a full-time, year-round endeavor for us. You know, it never stops, and quite literally never stops. I think, you know, if you do this job, it's almost like you're always on. You're always seeing things in the world around you. Whatever you read, whatever you consume, wherever you go, you are picking up signals and kind of squirreling them away. So, you know, so as, you know, forecasters, that's kind of like our 24/7. But the actual process of building the Future 100 is also a year-round endeavor. So we also, alongside that report, we have a channel on the VML website where we report trends, you know, on an ongoing basis. So we're constantly tracking trends and we're constantly kind of picking up on what's changing. And then the report itself probably takes up about half the year, right, Emma? I mean, yeah. So we'll almost as soon as one is delivered and presented and shared with the world, we're starting to think about the next one. You know, it won't be long, will it?
Oh my God. Like, have you guys already started working on next year's?
It's not far away.
Definitely thinking a lot about it.
Yeah.
We're still updating certain things with the current one. So we're, you know, pretty much throughout the year, we're being asked to present the Future 100 in different iterations, whether it's for clients or whether it's for certain teams that we're focused on or markets. So we're also in the process of updating the existing one, but thinking about the next one too.
Oh my God, that is just a beast right there. Let's dive more into the report itself. One of the things that really stood out to me was, out of the themes it had, dysoptimism. I'm just looking at my little notes here. With dysoptimism, just from what I was reading, some of the topics it was talking about dirty aesthetics, and this specifically wasn't part of dysoptimism, but I was looking into the trend of apocalyptic glamour, which was really interesting. And like dysoptimism was basically talking about how everything sucks right now, but here's how we're coping with it. I guess that's the best way to sum it up in 2 seconds. But was this overall theme of Future 100 surprising to you guys, or was this something that everyone and their mother saw coming?
Was it surprising? I
don't think so. I think we kind of saw it. I mean, contextualizing it as dysoptimism may be the surprising part, but I think we felt like something like this was coming over the years. For us being able to work on the Future 100 every year, we track different patterns. But you know, Marie kind of is the one to talk about dysoptimism. So,
well, I mean, I think, you know, what we've been seeing for the past 5-6 years even is that we're in a place where things aren't great, right? In so many different ways. And so that has been a constant. And I think, what's changed really is the response to it rather than the environment, you know. So if you think back to the pandemic and how people were feeling then, it was very emotional time, and it was more about just empathy and helping people get through it. And, you know, that's what people needed right then. And I think what's changed is, okay, we don't have a pandemic anymore, but we're still in a tough place with all kinds of different, you know, drivers, things like, you know, division, loneliness, cost of living crisis, all of that conflict, all of those things kind of have stayed with us. And I think what's changed is that people are now at a point where They don't want empathy anymore. They don't want to be sort of, oh, isn't it terrible? They want some practical kind of change and,
we want to take that control as well. Sense of like, actually, we can't just keep biding our time waiting for this to end.
We can't wait forever, for it to be, it may never be over, right? This might be, what we live in right now. So we can't wait forever for things to change. We might have to change them. So yeah, I think as Emma says, I don't think it was a surprise, but, what's always nice about when you identify themes like this is you're sort of like, is that it? Is that what we're seeing? And then when everything sort of keeps to continue confirming it, and it feels stronger and stronger as days go on, as the more time's gone on, the longer we've been talking about dysoptimism, the more I just see it everywhere, and that's really nice. I think that sense of kind of like, we're on the right track there.
It was really interesting to read about because, when I'm not dressed up in professional or casual, business casual, whatever I'm wearing, I usually dress up pretty grunge. Like think 90s grunge. That's how I usually dress. Like I'll use a flannel and have a t-shirt under and just have this unbuttoned whatever. And so there's not really a way to like make that style professional, but in a way, these at least fashion trends that dysoptimism was talking about, it's making them like they're going into fashion shows, like using dirt as well, probably not literally using dirt, but it's becoming such a more symbolic thing. Yeah. Which was just so fascinating to read about. I'm also just not a fashion person. So whenever upon first looking at it, I'm like, why are we using dirt on our clothes? But yeah, that was super, super interesting.
And I think what's so interesting about that is, you see in something like fashion, which goes in cycles, you'll see the same thing come back, so that sort of response of, dirt and decay and ruin has happened multiple times. So if you go back to the 80s and some of the designers, like, Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood, what they were doing was also a response to, the sort of social and political climate at the time. So, it's so interesting when you can draw parallels like that and you see the same thing happening with the same response,
Yeah, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Right.
I love that quote. But I was also looking into how this dysoptimism impacts brands, and like just quoting, in the post-truth era, brands are addressing consumer skepticism head on by rooting radical honesty in their branding and actions. And that stood out to me because I still remember when Wendy's was revolutionary in having a funny Twitter and just clapping back to any criticism or just random stuff on Twitter, or X now. And I think since then, like brands being super honest or just super blunt has increased since then. But then I've also heard chatter about people getting bored with that and wanting like professionalism again. So I guess my question is, how do you think brands should navigate that kind of, because I know it's talking about what's it called? Oh my God, where are my notes? It's like a contradictory trend there. And I definitely want to ask more about those. But I guess from this report, like how would you guys suggest brands navigate that kind of contradicting trend of, well, being blunt and brutally honest is the new thing, but also people are getting tired of that? If that makes any sense?
Absolutely. The context of dysoptimism is that we're living in what feels like dystopic times. Things are really uneasy, unsettling. We especially with AI, we can't tell what is true and what is not. Increasingly, we're having a hard time deciphering that. People feel quite uneasy as a result. But the optimism side, so the dysoptimism, the latter part, comes from people feeling hopeful and positive. So that's why we mesh those two words. And that's the sort of context behind the word itself.
Gotcha.
And really, I think how brands should be utilizing this macro theme is understanding people's worries or what's creating this dystopic feeling in our lives but also ways to promote optimism. And this is, for me, a really, really exciting space for brands to play in, because we feel like over the past few years and potentially in the next year, this sense of concern and woes and worries isn't going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already reflected in the instability within the markets, or the political happenings around the world of what's happening, and the polarization around people's political views as well. It just further feels like it's pulling people apart. But if brands are able to be there to help us decipher what is real and what is not, especially when we want to know the truth, and what is helpful in bringing us together, what are commonalities between us as humans that can bring us together regardless of our backgrounds or our political views. I think this is a really perfect place for brands to play in.
I think if I can add to that as well, I think, you know, another angle on what they can do is like treat it as an opportunity to do things differently. I think that's what people are really, really crying out for now, is we want to see something different, because, you know, in so many areas of life, it seems like things aren't working. So, you know, what can you do differently? What new models can you create that, you know, can almost be like beacons of hope, you know? So I think this is about, you know, an opportunity for creativity and for innovation, because, you know, essentially we're at a place where everything is just, you know, quite frankly, if I can say a rude word, a little bit shit.
That's fair.
Or a little bit bleak, if you have to take that out. So, you know, I think when we're in times like that, it can be a trigger for something better, you know, or it should be a trigger for something better. So, you know, I think it's you know, as Emma said, it's a real opportunity to kind of stand for something better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm like fighting in my head right now if I want to go on a tangent about something only slightly related, but I'm not going to.
We love tangents. So.
Well, my tangent is this is me getting a little personal, but I'm open to talking about it. Like, I've gone to therapy for a super long time. And so I've been very used to the therapeutic advice I was given that always says, think positive, look positive, try not to think about this negatively. And in recent years, what I've realized helped me so much was just being blunt about things to myself. Instead, like, if something terrible happens, and to cope with it, I think, well, it'll get better soon. Think positive about it. In the back of my head, I'm like, no, it's not good right now. Will it get better? I don't know, but you roll with it. So I think that bluntness is something that I think a lot of people are just using now, because trying to, and I'm not saying that the usual advice therapists give doesn't work. It just doesn't work for some people.
Right.
But I feel like that bluntness is definitely something that's popped up recently, and not just in like therapy or taking care of mental health, but also in like different industries, including this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just adding to that and throwing how you felt in a macro form is, I think we're at a time when it's important to acknowledge the difficulties in the world and not ignore it. And just blindly say it's going to get better. And yes, of course, the sentiment is that it will get better. But acknowledging what's happening and that times are tough right now is something really important. And people want to feel like they're not alone on this difficult journey. You know, others are part of it. Brands are part of it. They want to hear these very human stories. And this, for me, is what makes it feel really relatable. And often our trends, people say, hey, you know, obviously I can't understand it from my professional background, but I personally also really relate to these trends, and they can see this manifesting in their everyday lives. And it should. So this is how we kind of draw on the trends that we create.
Yeah. I'm really interested, though, in learning more about contradictory trends, because we were talking yesterday, and I'll say Emma number 1, I'll be Emma number 2, I guess. We'll establish that now. So Emma number 1, when we were talking yesterday, you had mentioned the contradictory trends, and I'm I was wondering if you could delve more into that, but also share what other contradictory trends that stood out to you in this report.
Yeah, so I think this idea of things feeling quite contradictory, we definitely felt it most last year. So Maria and I actually, when we were looking at macro themes, one of the things was polarization or contradictory trends. And we felt, well, actually, that isn't really a macro theme. So this can be part of the narrative in how we talk about it. And it starts with people. So the data that we were finding felt very contradictory. So one that I've pulled out from this year is 67% of people globally say that technology brings people together. However, 71% say technology gets in the way of human connection.
Yeah.
So they're saying completely opposite things, but both are true. And I think that observation in terms of how people are behaving and what they see and what they feel, in this case, when it comes to technology, manifests into the trends. So we have trends which is going all in on technology and how tech is being used and bettering our lives and everyday work environment. Yet on the other hand, people want disconnection. They want analog living. Both are true. Often when we present, we tend to have people at the end of the presentation say, hey, it feels like you're saying two different things here. And we are, but what we learn is we're human. And as humans, we're messy. We're a bit of everything. It's not one way. I know marketers really want a very clean answer to things, but it's just not the way things roll, right?
Yeah,
that's so true.
It's a great example from last year. Actually, if I can take you back to 2024, but we had a trend which was all about analog. Call it the analog movement, and it was all about how younger generation, Gen Z particularly, Gen Z in the US. Are kind of opting out a little bit. So kind of going back to flip phones or using Polaroid cameras or, instead of spending time scrolling, they were indulging in these kind of very tactile hobbies like gathering in a room and reading books or going bird watching and drawing birds. I'm sure you've, heard about this trend. It's been sort of covered quite a lot. And so what was interesting about that is that people are like, so, okay, does this mean that Gen Z is not using technology? And of course, it's not about that. It's about having different modes of living rather than being one thing or another all the time. So people love technology because of the benefits it can bring them. But at a certain point, they also want to be able to go at some point, put it away and touch grass.
Say touch grass.
So I think it's about, understanding that we're complicated and, we're not even the same at the beginning of the day or the end of the day sometimes. Right. And so we want different things and that makes it challenging, but hopefully a fun challenge.
I remember participating in that trend. Once I graduated college, I uninstalled all social media from my phone. But one of my hobbies is playing video games. That is all technology. Right. So it's like that mode of just, okay, I'm not going to scroll. I'm not going to doom scroll, but I want to play this game on a different screen. Right. So it's, basically like two things are correct. But I remember what I was going to say earlier, and it's also has to do with the contradictory trends. Like, Emma, number one, you were saying that storytelling in human stories is more important now than ever. But at the same time, AI is on such a rise. So then there's that balance of how can brands tell these stories, these really human, thoughtful stories, but use AI in a way that doesn't make it seem like a fluke or flaky or fake or something like that. But one of the other questions I guess I just wanted to ask is, was there any, like we talked about dysoptimism a lot, but were there any other themes or trends that really stood out to either of you?
I mean, latching on to your point of storytelling, we have another macro theme called story worlds, and it looks at both sides. So ways of telling stories with the aid of technology, but also ways of telling story just with human creation.
Yeah.
And what we've learned overall is people want and believe that creativity belongs to humans, and it's us who are the ultimate creators. Technology is there to assist and potentially make the process a lot easier to create. There's a trend in the Future 100 called democratizing creativity, and the way we spell creativity embeds AI within there. And it's the idea that now that people have more access to AI, in terms of you're not just using AI to inform you of questions you're curious about, it's actually creating things for you from a writing perspective, visuals or videos. It's doing quite elaborate things for you. So for someone who doesn't have a design background, you are able to create a form of art or a video through prompts. And that is a really, some people may be afraid of this, but for us, it's really exciting. It's a really exciting time that more people have access to be creative without having that creative background. However, where people will ultimately head towards is, we talked about in the previous year, the idea of being tastemakers. So people becoming more curators of art forms. So AI is able to assist in places, and we really believe AI is going to be beneficial in the creative industry, but it can't be done without humans. That's the ultimate takeaway.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting, I can't remember all the data points right now, but we asked people about different types of creativity. So, from movies to music, books, podcasts, adverts, how they would feel about it if they knew it had been created by AI. And from memory, and I can see Emma, number one here, is looking for the data as we speak. But from memory, the more sort of the output was associated with, what we think about as real creators, so a film or a song. Here we go. We've got it right in front of us. The more it sort of feels like something where there's an element of struggle to make it happen, the more people prefer the human creativity.
Yeah.
So here we're looking at it now. So people prefer, is this the AI data? Sorry, excuse me, guys. Impact of AI generated creativity. I am looking at the chart right in front of me now. So the things where people sort of really seem to like it more and treasure it are where, it's kind of like it's part of the process. So video games, right? Because they're inherently tech-based and they live on a screen, then that's something that's far more accepted than, say, a book, where if you think of a book, you think of something tactile and hard copy, or a film or a song, So I think there's gradations in where people are sort of more and less comfortable with AI. But fundamentally, there's something about storytelling that is innately human. It has to be, because, it's human experience that drives every story we've ever heard, right? So I think there's the AI can certainly help us with the process and making things kind of easier and more spectacular in so many ways. But the ultimate kind of root of it, everything we're hearing suggests that will stay, human. It has to.
Just to add one more note to that, we feel like things where, certain outputs where people feel less comfortable if they found out it was created by AI tends to be things that could be attached to their identity. So the sense of who they are, what they value,
definitely,
and ways of defining themselves. Music is a big one, right? So when you share the types of artists you like or the songs you like, people already are forming an idea of who you are as a person. And so if they say, hey, I really like AI music, that might change the way people perceive how you are and what you like. However, having said that, 10 years down the line,
who knows?
Yeah. I think we shouldn't be too critical of these types of outlets being created by artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But right now, we're at this very delicate point where people still don't know quite where they sit. And we, as forecasters are carefully watching. But I believe, years down the line, there may be room for AI creation that have a personal impact.
Yeah. One question I wanted to end off on for either of you or both of you to answer is, what do you think agencies or brands should get out of the Future 100 report?
Okay. Well, do you want to start?
You start. You can start.
We both wanted to speak at the same time. We're eager to answer this question, clearly.
Yes, go on, you start.
Very good question.
I will add if I can. How about that?
No, you certainly will add. I'm just going to say one point. For me, the Future 100 is to get people to think more broadly about what's happening in the world, think outside of their usual sectors, think outside of their usual comfort zones, think more broadly about what's happening and be inspired. So we've noticed there's a lot of cross-pollination between different sectors and the trends are falling under different sectors, hence the macro themes that we've created. But having said that, there could be challenger brands coming from different sectors as well that maybe brands aren't aware of because they're so entrenched in their sector that they're focused on. So we've seen, for example, beauty draws a lot of inspiration from food and drink and vice versa. And this is where we want to make sure people are thinking more broadly. And hopefully the big takeaway here is, be a little bit uncomfortable, be inspired, and use the Future 100 as a toolkit for whenever you have something new to work on.
So it's kind of like thinking broadly about niches in a way, right? Or something like that.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think, it's just a great way to kind of understand people because all of the trends really root back to people and how their behavior is changing. And so if you want to understand people, it's better to look at their lives holistically than kind of, zoom in on one aspect of it. So, the great way to use it is just to, pick, 3 trends from different sections of the report rather than kind of zoom in on your category. And as Emma said, kind of take a lateral approach. And, you can learn so much from things that aren't in your day to day. So, yeah.
Gotcha. I love that. I love that idea. And I love that take. Well, I wanted to thank you guys so much for joining us on the podcast. It was great to have you. And this was a really fascinating conversation.
Thank
Pleasure.
you. Yeah, thank you for having us.